I first saw the Masters of the Universe trailer when I went and saw Michael in theaters, and my first reaction to it was, wow, that looks like absolute trash. Because it did. The movie looked like a nostalgia pandering CGI slop fest with obnoxious jokes that were not funny. And Jared Leto was in it as Skeletor, which I thought was the funniest thing ever. So obviously I decided that I was definitely going to see it no matter what. Just because, I guess. Maybe it would be easy to make fun of. But then the Letterboxd reviews started coming in. People whose opinions I respect were calling this movie decent, or even pretty good. Well, now I was hooked. I had to see what all the fuss was about. So I saw it, and I gotta say, it's not nearly as terrible as the trailer makes it look. In fact, it's actually kind of good. I don't have any experience with the original 80s cartoon that this movie is based off of. All I really know is that a lot of 80s kids are nostalgic for this show. It made for some pretty cool action figures, and it led to the existence of that awesome Fabulous Secret Powers video, which is pretty cool. I know, I'm a fake fan. I'm just more of a Thundercats guy, you know? But from what I could tell, this movie didn't feel annoyingly pandery with its references and characters showing up. It felt a bit more genuine, like it was being made by someone with fond memories of the show who could now look back on it and laugh a bit. They often make fun of the names of the characters and the silly things in the show in not so much of a self-hating kind of way, but more out of love for the source material, like how I make fun of certain aspects of Star Wars. There's a unique kind of love for media that you grew up with and now can see some flaws in it, but embrace those flaws. I feel like this movie embodies that feeling. It has a very fun tone and goofy 80s cartoon energy to it with a pretty good sense of humor that mostly hits. It really feels like the tone that Thor Love and Thunder was going for without being obnoxious and terrible. There's a few awkward times where there's a joke being made and it doesn't really work, but luckily it moves at a pretty brisk pace and doesn't linger on those parts too long. And there are other times where the joke lands perfectly. In fact, I was laughing out loud quite a bit throughout this movie, especially the random sexual innuendos that had no real reason to be there. There's a lot of memorable lines that I think I'm going to start referencing in random conversations now. Of course, this definitely isn't a perfect movie or anything. There are times when it does feel like a crappy reboot of a franchise in the 2020s. There's a few slightly annoying parts where it's like, oh man, he's gonna say it, or oh man, that thing is gonna happen. I think you could argue that these play out with a sense of irony, but I don't know, they still come off as weirdly fan servicey for no good reason. Like, we all make fun of the say that again scene in Fan4Stick, but we still get all kinds of moments in movies where it's like, and this is how this thing you recognize came to be. And yet, I guess I'm contradicting myself here, because there's also some hype, oh man, he's gonna say it moments that do work. The first time he raises his sword and yells, I have the power! It was, even to a fake He-Man fan like me, pretty awesome. My favorite moment in the movie was when the orange hairy guy showed up on the freeway and What's Up by Four Non Blondes started playing. It was so stupid, but I was freaking out and having a great time because they played the song. You know, the one from the video. It was just a really funny scene also. Unfortunately, I would say that this movie peaks in terms of comedy and enjoyment I got out of it during those Earth scenes. I was laughing my head off and really vibing with it, but once they get to Eternia, it does slow down a little bit and starts to feel tired out. It still has its moments, and there are some great moments, but for some reason it just didn't have the energy of the first half hour or so. When it tries to be emotional, it more or less fails. There's kind of a big emotional thing that happens, and it doesn't really seem to have much effect on the character, which was strange. But like I said, there's a lot of good moments, and the final fight is pretty awesome. The movie's saving grace is definitely its visuals. You'd expect a movie like this nowadays to be ugly looking and full of bad CGI, but actually it has a nice visual style to it. The way the camera moves or whips around has a bit of Sam Raimi campy energy to it. While during the fight scenes, the camera is spinning around characters as they sometimes get like close to the lens during the fight. Unlike a lot of blockbusters do nowadays, this movie just embraces its fun, colorful world and lets things be full of color and look fun. I wouldn't call it amazing looking or anything, it just looks pretty good. The costumes and character designs are a lot of fun, and you can't really tell what's practical and what is computer generated. If I were to guess, I think most of these characters are costumes with like a bit of CGI touch up, and yeah, it looks great for the most part. The score for this movie is quite a bit of fun as well. The electric guitar riffs bring such a fun cartoon energy to an already pretty energetic movie. When I saw Daniel Pemberton and You'll be shocked here. Brian May of Queen in the credits. Everything made perfect sense. Good score. Okay, and the cast is overall doing a pretty solid job. The actor playing Adam is somewhere in between Channing Tatum in 21 Jump Street and Ryan Gosling in Barbie. Just kind of a regular-ish, goofy guy who's not the brightest, but he's trying his best. He definitely stands out more on the Earth scenes when he's the funniest and weirdest character around. His comedic energy becomes a bit overshadowed by everything else going on in the movie afterward. And of course I gotta shout out Alison Brie, who seems to be having a lot of fun in this over-the-top role she's playing. But no character comes even close to being as epic or funny as Skeletor. Once again, Skeletor is played by Jared Leto. You know, the Jared Leto who is famously bad at acting except when he plays a robot with no emotions or a guy who's constantly spaced out on drugs. And as much as it pains me to admit it, Jared Leto is really Jared Leto's really good. Good! He does a good job. Like, genuinely. I've never seen Jared Leto this human in a movie before. Skeletor has such a fun cadence to his voice and distinct movements and mannerisms that really make him fun to watch. He's very over-the-top evil villain, but also just a little fruity. Where in the world did this acting range come from? Are we completely sure Jared Leto was actually playing Skeletor? I'm not completely convinced. I love how it's a joke how Skeletor doesn't really have a reason for doing all this evil stuff. He's just the bad guy because he's got a skull for a face. He's evil, don't question it. I also just love his costume and also his face. I like how he has two little red dots that move around in his skull. And he has some of the best lines too. At one point he says to Adam, "Your big sword dangling between your thighs." That's got to be the best line in any movie ever, right? So basically, Skeletor is my favorite character in anything ever, and I think I'm in love with him. What was I just talking about? Oh yeah, the Masters of the Universe movie. Yeah, it's not perfect. The jokes don't always land. It kind of drags in the middle, and looking at all the wacky characters in the original TV show, I feel like they could have had even more epic guys with silly names to make fun of, but gosh darn it, this movie is just so fun. It's everything a blockbuster like this should be. It may be a bit of a product first, but the people making it do seem to be genuinely trying and passionate about what they're doing. I'm very pleasantly surprised by this movie and kind of glad it exists. I'm gonna give this a low 6 out of 10, but Skeletor gets a 10 out of 10. Have I mentioned how awesome Skeletor is? Tell me in the comment section what you thought of this movie. Whether you agree or disagree with me. Please tell me how I can improve with these videos. I would love to hear people's constructive criticism. And lastly, what are your top 3 favorite social security numbers? Okay, ciao.